All right, so the first thing that we'll get into is cognitive behavioral therapy, coined as CBT. And what does it actually mean? It entails thoughts, which is the cognition, behaviors, which is the behavioral part, and feelings, which are also tied to the cognitions. So, and it's working with the interplay. So basically how they interact and influence each. That's not what we wanted. Each other. So what does this look like? It has an emphasis on changing a person's thoughts and or behaviors to influence change. And a little caveat here is that you'll never really emphasize on the feelings since they are innate and are not controllable by the person. So, for example, if somebody walks into my house, points a gun at me, I can't say, Phil, don't be afraid. It's just like, please don't hurt me. I can't control how I'm going to react. I can only influence what I think about it, like, wow, okay, what's my next move? And then my behavior in response to that. I can't stop myself from being afraid because those are inherent and happen uncontrollably during that. So basically, during the therapeutic work, with a client, you as a social worker will explore maladaptive or negative thought processes to help influence a different outcome for the client. So, for example, when thinking about taking the ASWB, let's say clinical exam, for the second time after failing. So when thinking about the clinical exam for the second time after failing, I get worried and feel like I will fail. So maladaptive thought. So through the work of CBT, so whenever I think about the ASWB clinical exam, I will tell myself I am intelligent enough and can conquer anything rather than, so caveat, rather than my previously negative thought about failing. So doing so will actually influence my actual action and behavior, and some most likely my performance whenever doing this. So a key important thing here is when this action slash change is done, um, we attempt to influence someone's situation by helping them change their thought patterns slash behavior in response to a particular situation slash person slash time slash trigger. In doing so, we attempt to change someone's reaction to a stressful situation to influence their thoughts and behaviors in the future. So doing so, great example. This is all too real. Are you going to be doing practice questions? Yes, I'll do practice questions at the end. And yeah. So what disorders are we looking at here? So common disorders of treatment. So this is basically any and all disorders. CBT is like the standard now. I don't know if anyone's ever not heard of CBT at this point, but the main caveat here is as long as the person has the ability to make cognitive connections and has a sound mind, body, and reasonable mind. So difficulties here. So difficulties, wow, lie when the person has cognitive delays, traumatic brain injuries, as well as does not want to acknowledge that they have an issue. So those are some caveats there of like, you can't really help someone walk through a process with this. And then an additional example that I can elicit to bring it like all together is Phil is preparing to do a study group on client interventions and he is not sure whether people will like his style or not. He feels like people will leave the group and hate him forever. This is just fake, guys. I entirely don't feel like this, but let's walk through it. So my thought, I am going to fail and no one will like me. Feeling, fear, shame, and embarrassment. Behavior is the one that we'd kind of influence here. Let's say behavior, stumble, over words, avoid questions, and or ghost everyone, meaning just not even show up. So through the alternative, so alternative thought, I am going to succeed and everyone will enjoy my study group. Feeling, fear, excitement, and joy. If you notice, fear is the same. However, my reaction to the fear is different. I'm excited. I'm joyful. I'm glad that the people that come and support me every single week are back. New people are coming in and weaving in. So then my behavior deliver the best lesson of my entire life. So if you notice, totally different interactions and basis, but that's how CBT works. You basically retrain the person to think differently. And those that have worked with me in tutoring and or the study group for the question and answers, or even directly in the study group, know that I almost apply this every single time, but that's okay. As you know, social workers really can't ever take off their hats and don't ever want to stop helping people. So it's for the good of everyone. I'm not using my social work powers for bad, but so behavior modification is an emphasis is placed entirely on the client's identified behaviors / actions they would like to change. Not what the social worker would like to change, not what we think they need to change, what we entirely are working with them to change. They need to want it in this situation, just as CBT, but behavior mods even more so. So change is going to be based on the reaction to reinforcements, punishments, and or a mixture of both, depending on what you want to do and what they're motivated to do. So the motivation of the person is involved with the change and is the main driving factor for the success or detriment of treatment. And a little caveat here is basically the social worker can influence and motivate the client via reinforcements and or punishments, but the client is the main change agent. So when we look at this, we need to go with what are the reinforcements and punishments. So let's start with the reinforcements. So we have positive reinforcement and negative.
Trying to figure out how to get this back in full screen.
Oh no, I did not mean to do that. I meant to mute that mic. All right, so reinforcement. And the key thing here, reinforcements, something is added in the situation. So positive, think about adding something positive. So adding something positive into the situation to help provoke change in the client's situation. However, I'm gonna explain it differently, and this is any favorable or desirable stimuli / influence, because there's often more than one thing that is going to be of interest of the person that when presented will increase the likelihood of the intended / goal behavior. And an example here would be like getting praise for a correct answer on an exam. So if every question that you got right during the exam, someone walked in the exam room and gave you a pat on the back, one would probably get super annoying, but two would probably boost your confidence pretty high. If you're getting them correct, you're like, yeah, this is great. Woo! But then if the person stopped coming in, you're probably going to be like, man, am I doing poorly? Which could be more detrimental. So that's why this behavior modification has some drawbacks as well. Another example is getting money after completing chores. If I'm getting money, it's going to increase the likelihood that I actually want to do that. And another example, I'll just do 3, is getting to wear jeans on Friday when clients attend 80% of their sessions. That'd be kind of a cool incentive and an idea that I wish my agency followed. But yeah, if you notice, these things are going to increase the likelihood of something happening. So when a positive reinforcement is brought in, it's something that the client wants or the person wants. So they're actually going to strive and continue to do that behavior to get their intended result. The negative reinforcement, remember, it's adding something into the situation. So it's basically the removal / adding of sanity of a stimuli / influence after completing a behavior. The intended goal is to increase the compliance / likelihood that this behavior is repeated, which seems kind of complicated. You're like, Phil, I thought this was the addition. However, this is basically the removal of something that they don't like to add something that they do like into their life. So put into different terms, something that the client does not like is removed for completing the intended / goal behavior. And all of y'all have experienced this. I know I have. It's when putting your seatbelt on. Wow. Seatbelt on will stop the annoying beeping sound in your car. Like, you don't put it on, it's like bing, 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 bing. Now newer cars are like, they won't even let you drive, but like moderately older cars, they're like ding, ding, ding. It's just beeping and you're just like, stop, get that out of my life. So you put the seatbelt on regardless if you want to, because that was a way for them to get you to do the behavior regardless if you did it. Another example is having to pay for a speeding ticket will lower the likelihood of you having to, lower the likelihood of you speeding in the future. So if you have to pay for something, it tends to increase the behavior of you actually complying with speeding. Like, oh, wow, I had to pay for this. Nope, I'm actually going to drive the speed limit. People are just zipping by you, but you're like, not going to catch me. Another example would be if every time, so you will work out to be able to fit into clothes that you enjoy. wearing. Meaning you may not like the behavior, or not being able to not fit into the clothes was the behavior that you tried avoiding. So you did it to end up subsequently being able to do it. So we removed the inability to not wear them, so you do the behavior regardless whether you want to and or not. So negative reinforcements is often behaviors that you wouldn't do otherwise, but you will remove something that is more annoying or more detrimental out of your life, so that way you're able to do it. And that leads us into our punishments. And this is removal of something. And that is 1, positive punishment. Peeps is where we have any unfavorable event or outcome in order to weaken the response / action it follows. So basically something you do not like to happen, so it decreases the likelihood of you repeating the action. So this is something that is added into the situation that you don't enjoy. So it's removal of like joy. So for example, addition of something, spanking a child for misbehaving. Oops. Which the spanking would decrease the likelihood of them misbehaving again, i.e. removal of negative behavior by adding something into the situation. Example, so receiving ridicule for a joke that you told. Ridicule was the addition that reduces the likelihood of you repeating the behavior. So then we go to negative punishment, and that is when a favorable event or outcome is removed after a behavior / action occurs. So within this, an example would be taking a child's video game away after they misbehave. It's a loss of a paycheck when you violate work rules, meaning this is something that you would not repeat due to the fact that you're basically losing something that you would enjoy. So failing the ASWB exam and losing your job, meaning it would reduce the likelihood of you wanting to be able to fail again, given that's a little more outside of the scope of it, but that is how it operates. So remember, positive is adding something into the situation, negative is taking something out of it. Any questions to this point on CBT and or behavior mod? Repeat the punishments, they're seeming alike to me. Yes. So positive punishment is adding something into the situation that the person doesn't like to reduce the likelihood of the behavior happening again. So spanking the child is going to reduce the likelihood that they repeat the behavior. Receiving ridicule for a joke is someone adding something into your situation that is going to reduce the likelihood of you stopping it. And negative punishment is removing something out of the situation to make sure that the likelihood of you doing it again doesn't happen. So positive interactions are adding something in. Positive reinforcement is adding something positive into the situation. Positive punishment is adding something undesirable into the situation to provoke change. Negative reinforcement is removing something that the person would enjoy. And then negative punishment is removing something that they would enjoy. So negative reinforcement is removing something they would enjoy. So yeah, that is what that looks like. Thanks. Got it. Okay. Yep. So then we'll move into oops. So dialectical. Tickle. Behavioral therapy. So what is this? This is often broke into 4 different treatment categories. And I forgot to do this. So I apologize on that. So common issues / behaviors. This is effective with children with behavioral issues at home / school, or with people who have depression. Oh, why is this doing this? Huh. Okay. Depression, anxiety, and or substance abuse issues. Kind of like CBT without cognitive connection. Okay. CBT normally with borderline. Yes. So broken into 4 treatment categories. And what are the treatment categories? So 1, mindfulness. 2, emotion regulation. 3, distress tolerance. And 4, interpersonal effectiveness. So let's peel these layers out. So mindfulness is going to include helping the client to be more focused on the present moment, which will allow for the client to begin letting go of the past and their expectations and/or expectations of the future. So if you could imagine, a lot of people are on 10 with like, man, I need to do this perfectly, or I need to do this. Oh my God, this is going to totally negatively impact my future because this is, I have all of this stuff. Revved up material when just being mindful and be like, wow, I'm doing the best that I can with what I have in this given moment. So the goal here is to overcome cognitive dysregulation which is basically thoughts negatively impacting one's life. Allowing for things to be what they are and not trying to control the results and embracing what is. So a lot of people struggle with this. So then we also have to hit on the emotional regulation portion, which is helping the client to better understand their emotions / where they come from, with the hopes that it'll mitigate impulsive decision making, i.e., thinking before reacting on their emotions. Taking a second to think allows for the client to ensure what is going on in their situation before making a decision that they might regret. So basically, being able to allow the client to understand what is going on with inside them so they have more clarification and mitigation and decision-making power. And this allows for someone to have better control of their emotions / actions, to influence / change any unwanted emotions, to help reduce amplified expression / reaction. So oftentimes you'll see clients that something happens in their life and they just entirely derail themselves because they're like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. I need to do all of this stuff. And then AK, you fail your exam and you go out and buy 3 different prep programs. Probably not the positive move to do, because you take a moment, reflect on the process, and you realize it's not that you didn't have the information. It was just an application of that information. So just being able to pump the brakes and make a rational decision. So distress tolerance, if you can emphasize on the word distress, helps the client to get through stressful situations / events without making the situation worse by their reaction. So, how and why is this done? Being able to better handle stressful situations will enable the client to practice patience and letting go of the control in their environment, which can help breed connection with others and themselves. So being able to react in such a way. So such an example would be, someone hears about a death in their family and they are not sure how to cope. Subsequently, or in reaction to, they attempt suicide. So in this situation, taking a moment to process and allow for the control to be outside of themselves would allow for them to cope better. So committing suicide could be a way for them to try to grasp for some type of control as well as connection, or it's too painful for them to go through. But being able to sit into this situation that is just stressful as well as stressful will allow for them to be able to better respond in ways that are not such impulsive. So the main goal here is to eliminate or reduce, depending on where the client is, the likelihood of impulsive decision making and to increase the client's ability to react to stressful / distressful events in their life. Allows for them to integrate and develop experience and grow from difficult situations. And then the last little phase here is interpersonal effectiveness. So if you think about interpersonal, what does it make you think about? Relationships. Well done. So this is allowing the client to form healthy, and I'll emphasize healthy, bold it up, yellow it up, relationships with other people. Because oftentimes people that are in this type of treatment are in and out of unhealthy relationships, and or they just derail themselves when in relationships and become too consumed with it. So they begin to form meaningful relationships, mutual connection with other people. They learn to set boundaries in their life with other people and begin to express their needs and or concerns. Oftentimes people in these types of situations or that would benefit from this type of treatment are in relationships where it's entirely one-sided and they're getting nothing out of it, and because they're feeling exploited and they're just not able to express it, and they just keep it they keep it suppressed and or unheard. So oftentimes the person will not get their needs met and begin to blame themselves for inadequacies. And with this, we need to then begin to ensure, so this ensures that the client is able to better function and navigate relationships without being exploited and or exploiting others, because it can kind of swift both ways when you think about it. And this is another like subcomponent of it, but however, this is the examination, like this modality in general. So DBT is the examination of one's mind and how they react and handle situations. So when you think about the logical mind as well as emotion mind, and the last one is the wise mind. So this is the three-part continuum that's kind of in the back workings of all four stages, but to just quickly summarize it, the logical mind uses logic and past experiences to guide decision making and directs the thought processes. And then the emotion mind is the part of the mind that uses emotions, feelings, and psychological needs to guide their decision making and directs thought processes. And everyone has all three of these, so even though they may overlap and sound similar, it's because they kind of are. It just is a matter of what is controlling someone's decision making at the time. So wise mind attempts to find balance between the logical, between the logic mind and the emotion mind. So someone who lives within the moment and is aware of different factors in their life, but makes decisions based on the present moment only. So this right here, the wise mind, is a standard, which if you guys want to compare it to another theory, it's Freud's like ego, superego, and id. The logical mind is more of like superhero, emotional mind is more like the id, where it's impulsive decision making, directing and dictating everything. So that is DBT. Make this not colored. Bingo. Or is going to be. That's kind of foul. Okay, so that is where we have solution focused therapy. So 4. As well as I did it again. So common disorders in treatment of DBT, where you're going to see borderline personality disorder and or substance use disorders. So that is the common disorders, and I'll remember for the next couple, I hope. So solution focused has an emphasis on quick solutions, quick solutions to issues presented by the client. So what does this entail? So this is a brief modality with the goal being the main focus. Thus it is goal-driven and focused on solving the presenting problem as quickly as it can with as little involvement as possible. So within this, you're going to see the miracle question, meaning if anything could happen to you, what change would you like to see? A lot of you might answer, pass my clinical or master's exam, and I'll be with you. So solution focused wise, we might say, well, attend study groups, attend tutoring, develop a program that works for you, as well as stay confident and calm because you'll be more competent. So that'd be like a solution focused thing. So an example here would be, let's say Phil wants to pass his ASWB, and we'll go back to the clinical exam on his first try. So therapist would attempt to identify resources, skills, and strengths within within his situation to make the highest likelihood of passing the first time. And if you guys, like I said, if you guys have worked with me on one-on-one or in their study groups, I utilize this as well because I try to find the least involvement as well as the least amount of like effort on your part to get the biggest bang and or buck out of studying. So within this, the therapist and client would focus on the present situation and change that can happen now / as quickly as possible. So a lot of people that have worked with me, they just only want explanation on the acronym. They figure that out, and then they're super deadly, and they're like, wow, that's all I needed. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. So we come to a solution and find the resources and whatever is needed, whether that's watching a YouTube video, whether that's applying the acronym, whether that's just finding confidence within themselves. So the emphasis is on the client's strengths and resources already present or easily accessible to them. So a lot of times when people reach out and say that they want to pass the exam and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, what do you currently have? What are you currently using? And they're like, well, I have Therapist Development Center. Okay, well, you have the information down, so let's just hammer it home with whatever questions you have, as well as you don't need to get more things. It's more or less just being able to utilize what is available to you. So it's to utilize the resources, knowledge, and strengths present to stabilize / promote quick quality of life improvements. So then the next one, and huge emphasis here, if you want to differentiate them quick, think of a solution. So you're trying to find a quick solution. Task-centered. Emphasis is going to be on task. So we're going to find list of tasks / chores for the client to do. So what is this? So this involves completing a mission slash goal with the client, which requires multiple steps. So what is this? This is a collaborative relationship between the therapist and the client. And what happens, so specific task and or task, depending on what they are, is / are identified by the client, and a plan of action is established / developed to make the identified change happen. So within that, the solution is brought about by considering barriers, resources that they have / need, and the motivation of the client, which is the biggest driving factor of change. So within this, the work is completed by the client outside, and I'll emphasize outside the therapeutic setting. This is often done by case management type social worker. So an example, picture the client coming to a case manager when they need something, but they do not have regular contact or need follow-up. Well, need consistent follow-up. So another example that I could provide is people will come to fill for tips to pass the exam, yet they are the one who dominate and accomplish their goal. So within this, basically the social worker supplies ideas, resources, and avenues of change, and the client decides what they want to do with the information, resources, and avenues of change. The success / detriment of treatment is placed in the client's hands. And those that rock and follow the acronym, this would more or less be our advocate level. So another example to drive this home would be Phil recently lost his apartment and he is homeless. He reaches out to his therapist slash social worker for assistance. Phil's overall goal is to find housing and to improve his life. The social worker provides him a list of housing options, homeless shelters, and transportation to get in between the different resources. So if you notice, Phil comes in, has an immediate issue. They give me a list of tasks that I could possibly do to get to my situation, but it's up to me to actually finish and accomplish those particular goals and or resources. So any questions on any of that? Would someone use PTSD with DBT? That I've not heard entirely of. So I'm not going to lie to you and say yes, or I'm not going to lie to you and say no. And if you don't have any questions, just type no into the chat so that way I know. Okay. Well, let's shift gears a little bit and then go into our family therapies. So we'll start with our first one being Bowen's family therapy, aka the longest family therapy that you'd even imagine. So the ideology and driving forces behind this is that he believed that the family system is a living organism and such has identified patterns of behaviors. Well, behavior and or behaviors. So in the family organism, patterns of dysfunctional behavior and or behaviors, multiple, tend to be repeated into and stabilized over time and undermine family relationships. So huge emphasis is placed on intergenerational patterns of behavior. So within this, there are 8 different concepts of family systems theory slash Bowen. So the 8 different components. We have 1, differentiation of self. So this is basically the manner in which a person is able to separate themselves from their family members, such as thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and the response to stressful situations. So within this is how the person is able to separate their goals from the overall functioning of the family. So there are different levels of this. So levels of differentiation. So category 1, highly differentiated, and poorly differentiated. So highly is going to be someone who is able to maintain individuality while still maintaining emotional contact with their family. So within this, someone is going to react to the world rationally and enter into relationships while balancing competing needs for both belonging and being an individual. So an example of this is someone goes off to college to become a social worker, and they are able to focus on graduating while still being able to communicate and visit with their family. However, they are able to allow for the situation to happen and the struggles of their family to not be their responsibility. And on the other realm, someone who is poorly differentiated is someone that struggles with being able to think clearly for themselves and often reacts based on their emotional side, aka they are so involved in the situation that they are not able to view it objectively. Okay, they try to control and ensure their family is taken care of and even prioritize it over their own needs. So this is going to look like they need a huge dependence is placed on the approval of others and their family, and it influences their decision making. For example, Phil goes to school to become a social worker because he knows other people will compliment and commend him for his decision. They look to others to help them solve the problems in their life because they do not rely on themselves to make decisions. Another example, someone goes off to college and is struggling with math classes, and they call a friend from back home to help them solve the problems they are experiencing. When the friend has no knowledge / is unable to assist them, so when the person has no knowledge and is unable to assist them, they still reach out to them because it makes them comfortable, i.e., reaching out and utilizing people for support rather than getting their needs met. Which leads us into the second concept, which is emotional triangulation. Which, think about triangles. So what is this? This is a three-way person relationship / interactions. And also, whoops, why did that just happen? It's basically considered the smallest possible stable relationship system, because oftentimes two sides are stable / support each other, and the third side of the triangle is in conflict with the other parts. So basically, when there's tension within a relationship in the family, one of the people involves another person, and it helps spread the discomfort or conflict. So for example, Phil is mad at his brother, so he reaches out to his mother for support, which helps transfer some of the responsibility and stress to his mother. However, during calm periods, two insiders, or the two people who are stable, exclusively choose each other as supports and exclude the third person, or we consider them the outsider. The outsider feels rejected and tries to get close with one of the insiders. So during moderate periods of tension between the two insiders, one of the insiders will go to the outsider for comfort, which makes the original outsider an insider and one of the original insiders an outsider. So then we're looking at during high levels of tension, the outsider becomes the most desirable because they are needed for comfort from the conflict. Thus, whoever is feeling most victimized will attempt to find validation and approval from the outsider to alleviate pressure from the original relationship between the insiders. So then leads us into the third process, which is the family projection process. Which is the transmission of parents' emotional problems to one or more of the children within the emotional triangle, aka outsider. This projection may contribute to the development of emotional disturbance or problems. So, for example, a parent has low self-esteem and they project it onto one of their children. Thus, they provide constant approval and affirmation to the child to prevent them from feeling isolated or rejected. And the key thing, like they have felt or currently feel. Another example, which is the opposite. A parent feels confident in their abilities and project it onto their children. And a parent allows the child to make their own decisions and provides guidance as needed. The child will gain a sense of confidence just as their parents projected. Which then leads us into the fourth one, which is a multi-generational transmission process. Let me separate these cats a little bit. Bingo. So what does this one actually involve? I don't know why it does that foolish move. So small differences in differentiation between parents and their offspring leads to over many generations to progress or regress in their level of interdependence on each other. Higher levels of differentiation leads to higher progression into independence and successful results. So, roles, patterns, emotional reactivity, in family structure and or structures are a few components that can be passed on from generation to generation. Thus saying, like, if somebody is in a generation and they were instilled the values, you tend to infuse that onto future generations. Or if you did not like that within your upbringing and stuff, you will omit or eliminate that. So each generation of children that are most fused, or stated differently, less differentiated, will pass that onto their children, i.e., if a child grows up in a family that is healthy, they are less likely to have unhealthy family relationships with their children. So then the fifth is emotional cutoff. And what that looks like is where a person decides to best manage their emotional difficulties or other family concerns by emotionally distancing themselves from other members of the family, or they project them onto other family members and look for them to solve their issues. So, an example here. A person moves away from home or keeps physical contact but avoids emotional topics / connection with their family. So a person may look to form new relationships outside of their family and place more importance on those relationships due to feeling disconnected from the members of their family. So, an example here. Tom moves away from his family in Detroit and begins meeting friends at U of M Ann Arbor and avoids going home to spend time with his new friends. He does not relay any emotional information to his family. So a person may seek out relationships that can help meet their unmet needs that are not being fulfilled by their family. So what does this look like? They develop patterns that emerge from current relationships and project them onto future relationships, which then leads us into the sixth one, which is sibling position. And this particular phase describes the tendency of older children tendency of older, middle, and younger children to occupy specific roles i.e., oldest child tends to have a leadership type role since they have to mend and tend to their younger siblings. Middle child tends to take on the role of both the older and younger child, since they are technically the oldest of the younger and youngest of the other. So they can be a leader as well as a follower on, dependent on the setting slash situation. And then the youngest child often prefers to be a follower within situations slash interactions they are involved with, which then leads us into back to the situation of differentiation can impact these roles. So for example, an older child who was anxiously focused on may grow up indecisive and highly reactive to expectations being placed on them, which would make them more of a follower. And in a situation where the youngest child fills in the roles of the older children, they could be more differentiated and thus occupy leadership roles with confidence, which then leads us into the seventh characteristic, which is the nuclear family emotional process. Which basically describes the four basic family relationship patterns that govern where problems develop in a family, meaning a person's attitude and belief system may impact the development of issues in a family, but the main contributing factor is the emotional family system, which leads us into the types. So type 1 is marital slash intimate partner, and this is when a family is in conflict, the anxieties and emotions of both parental figures increases, and they project them onto the family, well, onto the other family members. So this looks like they may begin to lash out about other people's shortcomings, or they will both seek to have a sense of control in the relationship, kind of reaching for some type of comfort based on having control. So an example here would be a child is underperforming in school and both parents are upset. However, rather than focusing on the situation, both parents blame the other for the downfall. Rather than trying to help the child. Which then leads us to got a little overzealous there. So dysfunction. Wow. Within a relationship by one of the spouses. One partner pressures the other to attempt to fulfill that role. So both partners do what is expected to keep harmony in the relationship. So this can lead to children playing this out into future relationships. So two kind of like continuums within that. I.e. needing to complete specific tasks to remain in a ship, which you can imagine is pretty maladaptive. So depending on what it looks like, so the intimate relationship. So we often see this, that when they're in a conflict, that it could be detrimental. So within this, it's often dangerous that they'll blame other people as well as destroy the potentials for connection and make it like caveated to be prerequisite and not good. So within that leads us to our 8th little task. So 8th final stage is the societal emotional process. And what this does is it examines how the principle affecting the family system applies to the emotional system of society. So we interweave and we look, how is this family developing what they do based on what the society says? So some considerations are the current behaviors, ideologies, traditions, and traditions within a family, helping them to progress or regress from generation to generation. So regression here would look like society acts to alleviate anxiety / tension in the moment with little thought on the long-term consequences, which means there is little or low level differentiation, because you remember differentiation is the amount of codependency as well as latching on to other people for stuff. So depending on others to survive and thrive would lead to unsustained, well, let's use proper instability in the future. So then begs the question of, what does progression from generation to generation look like? So this is where emphasis is placed on making informed decisions with the future in mind, which high level of differentiation exist, which looks like family depends on their own resources and is able to survive without any / very little societal influence, which then leads us into the second family therapy, which is structural family therapy. So what does this do? It aims to alter family organization with a focus on thought patterns and communication styles that negatively impact the family unit. So emphasis is placed on the family as a whole rather than individual members. It examines subsystems and the impact on the overall structure. And then a huge emphasis is placed on the boundaries and interplay of interactions among family members. So, which begs the question when you say, well, Phil, give us the types of boundaries. Good idea. So the types of boundaries that we're going to be looking at here are enmeshed, disengaged, and healthy. So let's get down to business. So the first type that we have is going to be enmeshed / diffuse, which think about being meshed together, or mesh is like super like interwoven together. So this is when people fail to keep their lives separate enough / blurred lines exist. And so this is where the relationship lacks boundaries or sense of self within relationships. It's difficult for family members to establish a sense of independence. Difficult for people to create a sense of identity beyond their family, which can prevent the formation and continuation of relationships beyond their family members. Parents can become overly involved in their child's life and use them to live out their unfulfilled dreams / goals. And then parents can center their actions and emotions on the child / children and use them as an emotional support. And then a couple examples here. Child and parents are quote unquote best friends. Another example, parent tells their child that they are cheating on the other parent / vents to them. Another example, parent forces their child to play football because they feel like they have unfulfilled goals when they played, which leads us to the second type, which is disengaged or rigid boundaries. So these are boundaries that are extremely rigid, or there's little room for people to be involved. So people tend to distance themselves from others and the family. Huge emphasis is placed on autonomy and independence, which lowers the value of emotional connection and support, as well as affection. It's more of like a business type thing. So tend to be unaware of the problems occurring within the family. Find it difficult to support other family members due to emotional distance. An example here: family lives in the same house but do not know anything about other family members. Two family members have a conflict but do not talk about it, which then leads us to clear and, well, clear/healthy boundaries. What do these bad cats look like is when the person obtains a sense of personal autonomy/identity, yet allows for a sense of belongingness/connection within family relationships, an environment where people are comfortable with sharing their feelings and thoughts without much fear of rejection/criticism. Effective communication and respect of personal space and information is kept confidential, as well as compromise and accommodation exist within relationships. So those are our types of boundaries, which then leads us into our third type of family therapy, which is strategic family therapy. So what does that mean? Let's check. So strategic family therapy is when it examines family processes and functions such as communication, or problem solving patterns by evaluating family behavior outside of therapy sessions. And then strategic has a driving factor that the therapist believes can occur rapidly without intensive analysis of the source of the problem. And then within this is where the family agrees to the therapist being in charge, and they act as the expert. So when we look at this, it's basically like, say as I do, design to help mobilize and maximize change. So within this, the therapist will employ paradoxical intervention, which basically is suggesting that the family take action in opposition to their treatment goals. So an example of this would be therapist tells the family to avoid each other when the goal is to be more connected. This will allow for family members to see how connected they are and how much they rely on each other. And it just creates buy-in. And it seems kind of like backwards, but it's like basically like reverse psychology type deal. But another example would be the family wanting to increase their communication, and the therapist would tell them to reduce their level of communication to see how well it works out. So it's like doing the total opposite of what they actually want to help create buy-in. So this basically helps provide a baseline measure and how much progress can be made with the implemented strategy and or strategies. So I'll just type that out because that looks kind of wonky. Strategies. So then what this does is the therapist will utilize circular questioning to gather information from the family. And basically what that is asking questions to each of the family members to ensure their viewpoint is heard. And within that basically allows for everyone to share their views without other family members interrupting or influencing their response, i.e., everyone gets a turn to share so the entire picture is able to be painted. So those are all of our therapy approaches. Any questions on any of that before I get into the questions? Okay, so question one. A social worker at a psychiatric emergency agency is completing an intake assessment with a 27-year-old man. The man was brought in by his friend because he has been homeless for the past 2 weeks. The man reports that he was kicked out of his house since he stopped contributing to the bills. The man reports having episodes of depression where he will isolate himself for days, experience crying spells, have low self-esteem, and having periods of hypersomnia. What would be the best treatment modality for the social worker to utilize? And when you have your answer, type the word water into the chat. Okay, and if you guys need more time, just say time in the chat. And if not, I will open up the poll. All right, fire away. Bango. Do. Let's see what we can do. Okay, and if you need more time, just feel to take it. I'll give you like 40 more seconds, but seems like the majority of you already have your response in, which means that you guys are killing it. All right, 10 more seconds. Okay. 2, 1, bingo. All right, so the majority think it's A, some think it's B, some think it's C, and some think it's D. So let's get into it. So, social worker at a psychiatric emergency agency. What are we doing? Completed an intake. Who is the client? 27-year-old man. So what's happening with this guy? He's brought in by his friend because he's been homeless. So some homeless. 2 weeks is the time frame. Man reports that he was kicked out of his house since he stopped contributing to the bills. So some type of regression in said behavior. Reports having episodes of depression where he'll isolate himself for days. Experience crying spells and have low self-esteem and periods of hypersomnia. What would be the best treatment modality to utilize with this person? So we'll automatically take out behavior modification, since that would require us to figure out what's going on in the guy's situation, and definitely is a little bit deeper than behavior mod. So then it asks us, do we want to do CBT, solution focused, or task focused? So here we're at the psychiatric emergency place, and so task centered would most likely not be the best, because remember, this is stuff that happens outside of the agency. And that begs the question of CBT or solution focused. But remember that we're at a psychiatric emergency agency and we need swift, quick change. We need to stabilize this guy and get him back on his feet. So with that, CBT would be kind of ruled out, because CBT is more of a longer period of time. And even though they're exhibiting some depression symptomology, solution focused would be the best possible answer here, because remember, this is a solution that's immediate, quick, and helps the client adjust to their situation. So solution focus would be the best answer here. So any concerns or questions or feedback based on that? Remember, setting is important here. I was looking at his symptoms. Yes, but you have to remember, setting is going to dictate what you're able to do. Okay. Question 2. Social worker at a private clinic meets with a 35-year-old male who reports having difficulty forming and maintaining relationships. The man reports that every relationship he's been in, he feels like the person does not care about him, regardless of how much he feels he does for them. The man reports that whenever he feels rejected, he'll utilize substances to cope with the perceived loss. During his most recent relationship, he reported spying on his girlfriend whenever she would go out with friends to ensure she was not cheating on him. What would be the most effective modality to treat the man? And when you have your answer, type I can in the chat. And if you need more time, just type time into the chat and we will see what we can do. Okay, so I'll give it a touch more time to see what we need to be looking at. And remember, guys, this isn't a race. Break it down, analyze, and profile it. Because when you are calm and confident and snap it done, you can kill it. So I will open the poll, but feel free if you need to minimize the poll and you can pop it back up. So, bingo. Let's see these votes roll in. Roll in, roll in, roll in. Strolling, prolling. They see me roll. And if anyone needs more time, feel free, but 20 more seconds on the clock. Okay. So the majority think it's C, some think it's A, some think it's D, and some think it's B. Let's look at it. So a social worker at a private clinic meets with a 35-year-old male. What are they doing? Having difficulty forming relationships. Reports that every relationship they've been in, they care about them, and they feel kind of hopeless within it, not reciprocity. Whenever he feels rejected, utilize substances for the perceived loss. And he reported spying on the girlfriend to ensure she was not cheating on him, so some type of paranoia and or control here. What would be the most likely thing? And again, slap out behavior mod, because this person's beyond a little more of behavior. It's more of like cognitive as well within themselves. We'll rule out solution focused here because this is beyond quick and fast action. It seems like it's been stemmed and deep rooted within what their current situation is, which then begs the question of, do we want to do CBT with this person or DBT? And the way that we would do that is we would look at what in particular are we looking at for symptomology. So difficulty forming relationships, overbearing and feeling hopeless, as well as utilizing substances and spying on the person. We are looking at our good old borderline personality disorder. Telltale of what treatment modality would we utilize? Dialectical behavioral therapy, because CBT, yes, it is a standard for everything and could be useful in this situation. It tends to be shorter and stabilized, and DBT is longer and specialized for particularly cases like this. So the answer here would be dialectical behavioral therapy. Any questions or concerns on that? Okay, let's move on to the third question. So a social worker at a family agency has been working with the family and their 7-year-old daughter for the last 3 months. The family engaged in services to work on their communication to ensure that they had healthy relationships and understanding with each other. More recently, the daughter has been getting into trouble at school by disrupting class, not listening to the teacher's instructions, and walking around the room when completed with their assignments. The family denies that the daughter has any behavioral issues at home, but feels like her allowance is a huge factor in that. What would be the best treatment modality to address the daughter's behavior? And when you have your answer, type "I will" into the chat. And if you need more time, just type time into the chat. Okay, so let's open these chats up. And if you need more time, just type time into the chat and we will give it to you. But if not, we can just roll with it. All right, 10 more seconds. Okay, some think it's A, some think it's B, some think it is C. So let's see what we're looking at. Social worker at a family agency, working with a family, 7-year-old daughter, past 3 months, so there's some established relationship there. The family engaged in services to work on communication and gather healthy relationships. The daughter has been getting into trouble at school, disruptive, not following instructions, walking around and knowing that sessions are completed. So that means the 7-year-old child is going to be our client. And the family denies that this happens at home and that they already have kind of an incentive system established, which tells us exactly which treatment we need to be looking at. So solution focus is not going to be the best viable option here because we're not looking for short actions to a problem. We already have a system established at the house, and likely we're just going to reinforce and utilize that one. CBT is going to be kind of effective, but definitely not the most effective in this type of situation because when they're 7 years old, they're typically not going to be available and ready to be looking, oh yeah, this is how I think, feel, and behave. So I need to change that. And then medications definitely would not be the first thing that you'd want to do, given this happens all the time in actual real life. But the best telltale thing here would be behavior modification with the positive reinforcement that is happening at home. With the allowance is something that the child enjoys, so they do the behavior to get the desired outcome. So the higher likelihood of them doing good behavior in school would lead them to doing good behavior at home as well. So, boom. Any questions on that one? And we have some people that are hype getting the correct answer. Okay, so then cranking to the fourth one. A social worker at an outpatient clinic is meeting with a 25-year-old female who presents with symptoms of anxiety. The woman reports that she's been feeling on edge and unable to focus on goals in her life. The woman reports that she would like to attend school to become a social worker, but has been unable to finish the application process because she feels like she's not good enough and that she will be rejected. The woman reports she is not motivated and feels like the social worker can help her improve her life. What would be the best modality to assist the client? Task-centered therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, solution-focused therapy, or exposure therapy. And when you have your answer, type I must in the chat. Oh, wow, we have some lightning people here. They're like, "Pow." They're like, what is even question? Like, oh, I don't need time to answer the question. I just know all of this, which is beautiful. It means that we have some lesson in the life of what we're looking. And if you need some time, just type time, but if not, we'll rip open the poll. Poll happening now. Pow. Out goes the poll. As the answers pile in. So how's everyone's New Year's goal going? Good? Bad? What are we looking at? They're doing okay. Good. Oh, so what were some people's goals? We have good. Okay, good since I have you. Oh, pass the LCSW. Oh, I have a lot of feeling that it was a lot of people's New Year's goal. Goal is to pass the exam, pass it, sign up and pass the exam. Great, pass the exam. Yep, gonna pass the C. Pass this test, pass the exam. Focus on myself. Pass the exam, just hitting the big 30 last week. Happy belated birthday. Well done. I often think what life will be like when I hit 30, but I commend. I know, right? Let's show some hype. Slow some support. Okay. Learning to have patience. That is a good goal. I think Phil needs to steal that one. But all right, so most people think it's A, most people think it's B, and then some think it's C. Let's see what we're looking at. Yeah, and feel free to show support to peeps. It's the best way to instill support into yourself. So let's see what we're looking at. Social worker in an outpatient clinic. Who are we looking at? 25-year-old female. Some anxiety. What does she want to do? She wants to be feeling on edge and able to finish goals. Okay. She would like to attend college, unable to do it because she feels not good enough and will get rejected. And she's motivated and feels like the social worker can help. Okay. So definitely not exposure therapy, because what are you going to expose her to? Applying to school? That's kind of a strange goal. CBT is not going to be the most effective here because, yes, she has some like self-doubt and some cognition. However, she's motivated and ready to handle this darn thing and ready to range it around. So then we have to think, are we coming up to a solution to a problem? Or are we helping someone do task-centered? Remember, solution focused is done inside, task-centered is done outside. So key emphasis here is, are we coming up with the solution, or are we helping someone develop a task and steps to complete what they want to complete? Solution focus more or less to stabilize and get quick action and higher quality of life. Task centered is to help someone identify a plan for them to go out and assassinate their goals. So in this type of situation, we're going to be looking at more of a task centered, because she's looking for ways to improve her life to complete a task, such as applying for school. So this might look like the social worker meeting with her, identifying a plan, resources, and strengths within her situation, and then mobilizing and honing in what she can actually do. It is a pretty tricky question, I know. However, when you have Phil writing the questions, you'll get that. But remember, take it slower, guys. You don't have to rev in and get it. Because as we get thicker and thicker into the questions, they get more and more confusing. And we have some people that are like, yeah, please give me more like that. And yeah, I do have a couple more. So a social worker is working with a couple and their 10-year-old son who has been having outbursts of anger towards other children at school. Through a discussion with the family, the social worker finds that the parents have been arguing about money in front of their son, and that the son often becomes included in the arguments. The husband reports that when he was a child, that his parents would do the same with him, so he does not see any issues with it. What should the social worker do next to help the family? Provide information regarding Bowen's family therapy, provide information on structural family therapy, provide information on strategic family therapy, schedule individual therapy sessions for all of the family members. And when you have your answer, type pass in the chat. And if anyone needs more time, type time. But if you've noticed, we've kind of created a nice little phrase for you guys. I can't, I will, I must pass. That was it. That was on purpose. Don't worry. Because you guys will all pass. You have to. You have to, as in the sense that you guys are way too skilled and talented to let some exam divert you and stray you off path. So you must believe in order to achieve. And so let me slap open the poll and don't feel pressured to answer immediately, because this is a tricky question. Really tricky. So tricky that I have a feeling that some people are gonna, what? No way. Flip a table. Update for those that were curious. The mouse has not made a noise at all tonight. So we're okay. That's good. I know. I was so scared. Whoop whoop. Maybe Mickey Mouse left both another person. The mouse. I was scared for you. Dude, I'm still scared. But he's gone for now. All right, hang on. I'll explain this question and then I'll explain I'll explain what's going on. I'm so sorry. That's so funny to me, guys. B, the most common answer is B, then A, D, and then C. All right. So a social worker is working with a couple and their 10-year-old son, who's been having outbursts towards other children at school. Through discussion with the family, the social worker finds the parents have been arguing in front of the child about dinero, and he'll become involved in the arguments. The husband reports that when he was a child that he'll do the same thing, so he does not see any issues with it. What should the social worker do next? Definitely not D, because whenever it's a family, you never want to separate and differentiate them out from one another. Then we need to split some hairs here and see if it's strategic, structural, or Bowen's. And you have to remember here that strategic is where the social worker implements strategies and the family utilizes them outside, and the social worker is the one that comes up with the strategies. Strategic is going to be enabled and disabled here, and that would leave, do we want to do Bowen's or structural family therapy? And remember, structural is the emphasis on communication styles as well as boundaries. And then Bowen's is the one that differentiates family differentiation, influence, and intergenerational continuation. So meaning if previous generations did something, future generations are more likely to do it. So the way to dismantle those patterns is to utilize that one. So with that, when we look at it, there's kind of some boundary issues right here. However, the husband is saying that there's some intergenerational transference of the behaviors that they're doing now to what they're currently doing. So if we look at it, Bowens is going to be the correct answer for the sole fact that there is triangulation as well as intergenerational transference of it. So that is the correct answer. Any questions or doubts about that? That's what I mean, guys. My questions tend to be a little tricky. Especially when I'm left to my own device while drinking coffee. Bad moves. And then a sixth question, hype for the sixth question, because we only do 5 mostly. But since I wanted to get all the family styles in, as well as the other therapeutic modalities, I'll drop this sixth one on you. So, social worker at a community mental health agency is working with a mother and her 10-year-old daughter. The mother and daughter were referred to the social worker by CPS due to the daughter being caught drinking alcohol at a bar. The mother reports that her daughter would never do anything like that and that the CPS worker is lying. The daughter reports that she will always spend time with her mother when she goes on to dates and that she is her good luck charm. What would be the most effective modality to utilize within the family? Bowens, strategic, structural, or family systems therapy. So let's drop the next word and phrase is the exam in the chat when you have your answer. So you can, you will, you must pass the exam. The floodgates have opened. But yes, those that are curious. Yes, the water prior. That was not by chance either. We had to open the floodgates with the water. But yes, those that are curious, I'll open the polls, by the way. Those that are curious, I have been hearing random noises coming from under my cupboard for the past 2 days. And I was doing a tutoring session earlier. And I kept looking over there because I heard something. And I got my flashlight out, looked under there, and I was like, I don't see anything. But I kept hearing noises still. And I knew I wasn't like just imagining it. But I haven't found any evidence or anything. But it's been like freaking me out a little bit because I ain't trying to get bit or anything. But that is the story of little Mickey Mouse. He went right into his own little house and he stayed away from me. But those that were curious, that's a little story about the I'm still a little, but he hasn't come back since this afternoon. He must have multiple dates. Must have brought his good luck charm along. I know, Lindsay, that thing's scary. Get a trap. That's the thing, though. It would have to be a deep one, because like the cupboards have like a slit underneath. He found Minnie. Man, that's so clever. But that's the thing is like, I live in an apartment too, so I ain't trying to get in trouble. Put like a bear trap under the counter or something like bad moves. And get a cat. Dude, apartment tax with cats though is like wild. Like they're like, hey, pay this amount for rent for you and let's double it for the cat. And you're like, bruh. Trust me. I was use someone else's cat for a few days. And then the landlord comes for something and they just see a cat ripping around. Where's the poll? Oh, did you not get it? I already posted it up. Anyone need more time? Yeah, I don't think a lot of people got this poll because only 26 people answered. Do you guys want me to redo the poll? Yes. All right, let me end the poll and then I'll relaunch it. Hang on. I had to close the poll and then reopen it. All right, so then it'll show up again. So if you already put your answer in, just feel free to tap the one that you would have tapped. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I was wondering where half the crowd went. I was like, damn, did I kill him with the mouse story? My bad. Like crickets, just beep, beep. No need to have a cat when you have a cricket. That's true. All right, does anyone need more time? How big is it? I don't know. That's the thing. I haven't sniped it out yet. I just heard fiddling and I was in the middle of it, so I didn't want to just like randomly stand up and walk off. That would have been even more weird than like looking over my shoulder constantly. But all right, there might have been a whole dude. There might be. I did look under the cover and there's two of them, but I don't know if they lead anywhere. I'm not trying to like move my hand anywhere and get snapped by something. All right, so let me end it. So the majority think it's C, some think it's B, some think it's A, some think it's D. Let's look at it. Your landlord should be able to. I know, but that's the thing is like without evidence, I don't want to be like, hey, there's probably a mouse in here, but so I tried getting a picture of it, but couldn't get it. All right, so social worker at a community mental health agency is working with mother and 10-year-old daughter. The mother and daughter were referred to the social worker by CPS due to daughter drinking alcohol at a bar. The mother reports that CPS is lying and her daughter would never do such a thing. The daughter pipes up and says that she'll go on dates with her mom because she's her mom's good luck charm. Maybe some boundary issues here, guys. What you thinking? So Bones would be out because it's not like intergenerational in any triangulation because it's just two peeps. Strategic would not be the best answer because that was where the social worker would be in the lead and often do it, and they're not developing any strategies here. So then we do family systems theory, which is another word for Bowen's family therapy. Trick number one. So the answer here would be structural because we're trying to reanalyze and distribute the structure as well as the boundaries within the family. So that would be the correct answer there. Could you hear the mouse in the recording? Play it from the landlord for proof. Well, the thing is like I didn't really record. I don't really record sessions. Could you hear the mouse? Try a peanut butter trap. They'll get stuff. Got it. Good questions. Yeah, thank you. All right, I need questions on the questions because then I'll stop the recording and then I can open it up too. It's a little more serious, chat. No. Okay. So 3, 2, 1.